All right, plan weekly meeting, 16th of February 2022. Donald, you're up first.
I just got here. I'm not ready. Okay, I am up first. Yeah, so by now you probably all saw the note, or Scott reached out to you, but he is no longer at GitLab as of Monday. I linked to his note in Slack. I believe all his open projects have been transitioned, but if you do need anything that he was working on, or if you have any questions on anything he was working on, just let me know. Currently working on backfilling his position. The role should be, the rec should be open, I'm hoping for today. It's been a bit since we've opened any engineering positions on the plan stage. And things have changed a lot, and I'm still trying to refamiliarize myself with the process. But hopefully that should be open today. Questions, comments? Hopefully we all said our goodbyes. He'll be on the alumni Slack channel soon. All right. Looks like Alexis is adding some previews. Woo-hoo.
Hello. All right. Let me share my screen and all that stuff. So I'm looking into Epic, I guess, links, I've been calling them, because I'm trying to keep them for MVC fairly similar to what we have now. I think that's what we've been discussing. So the idea of just like linking, epics as dependent or related, basically blocks is blockify as the ones we have currently. First, I think, one of the problems we would have to think through is like how to differentiate this widget from the current I guess epics in issue widget we have, like the epic tree, right? I think, and this is all kind of rough and I want to validate it more, but what we could do is just kind of style that epic tree more like our other, I'm going to say widgets so much, our other widgets. And instead of having that tab at the top, start thinking about how we could show these items like in a view, because we're kind of thinking of view types. So switching that for now to a different component, lessening the hierarchy a little bit, and then that could be contained in this widget instead. And then the user could perhaps collapse this entire widget. I know we've had some feedback that the epic tree can get long, for example, so maybe we could just collapse the whole thing. That doesn't necessarily collapse every single object within the tree or anything, just the whole widget minimizes it. And then maybe we could think about how to contain that roadmap view within this widget as well. I know it kind of has some issues at the moment, or maybe I don't know, maybe we hide that view for now. Maybe we could look at usage and see if people are using that, and if we could just kind of focus on the tree. And then at some point, maybe we will merge these widgets together, but for MVC, I think it makes sense to just kind of keep them separate. And then, as we see now, just the tree view, and this would be nested, all the stuff it does now. And then this also having kind of like two rows here for counts and for like settings, just gives it a little bit more room to breathe. Again, I'm still playing with this. And then at some point we might have more kind of like settings here. And maybe this turns into like a drop down with, show labels and anything else the user wants to do. Maybe they want to hide closed items here. I don't know. We could play around with different things to do there. So that's just like thinking through updating the current epic tree so that maybe we can then place, let's say, this new linked epics widget below it. And they look similar, but not quite, not exactly the same, but you understand they're part of the same system. And it doesn't look so jarring together. And you could also collapse, some of these so that you can better focus on different widgets, again, within an epic. And then playing around with this, so I put like the different things I'm discussing here in the agenda. So if you have questions, you can put them there. Another kind of bigger thing I was thinking through is how to search for epics that you want to add. So the kind of complexity here that's different than the linked issues is that, of course, they can be in different groups, right? so thinking through how that would look, I think what could be awesome is we can, swing it. And I'm not sure we can. It's just allowing the user to kind of search across all groups. And so not quite federated search, but when they're searching within the search bar, for example, maybe it just indicates what group each of these items is within. So I'm searching for Epic D. I see Epic Daisy, Dog, Donut, right? Those are the ones that exist. And they're in different groups or different subgroups. I see that there. And then actually, yes, that is one part of it. And then it would be also interesting if the user could just create an epic if it doesn't yet exist, just straight from this experience instead of having to click a separate button. So if they could just say, okay, I don't see Epic D in this list. I just want to create it. Whatever that experience is, I think it would be nice if there was just contextual. We could just maybe plop a modal there for MPC. They create it, and then once they click create, they go back to the context they were at before, and they see it's added, and they can add that linked epic. Or if let's say we want to allow users to create or add many epics at once, it would be kind of similar, just maybe check boxes, and then it tokenizes here, and then they could just add or create another. And then if we can't allow for this, then we would have to add some kind of group selector. I don't know exactly what that could look like. If you want to have it more conversational like we do currently, maybe it's just like the following epic located in. The only reason I don't love this is that they're logically wanting to select probably the group before the epic, but they might not know the group it's in. So even if we place this a little bit more quote unquote logically, if I don't know the group that the epic is in, that's just kind of cumbersome. I'm going to stop there. I have been talking a lot. Is there questions that I can start answering for y'all, or we can talk through this?
Yeah, so I have a small question there. So we are planning to reuse the linked issues front-end app as it is for the epics. And we have done some backstage work to clean up all the hard-coded strings, etc. And one limitation or the feature behavior you could say is that in the linked issues, we do not support searching for plain text issue titles. You would either have to paste in the entire issue link, or you just need to have an issue ID. So in case we want to introduce a title-based search for the linked epics, then there will be a disparity between the two widgets. So do we want to continue having the similar mechanism for the epics where user will be allowed to just paste the epic link or an epic ID followed by the symbol? Or do we want to do the other way around where we introduce a title-based issue search in the linked issues? Because I would rather prefer to have a consistency. And as a first iteration, we can skip on not having title-based search and just have the widget be reusable as it is.
So Kushal, I think there is title search. It's just hidden. So you have to hit the hashtag pound symbol first, and then you can title search after that.
So I have it open in front of me, and the moment I put in hash as a symbol for issue, it does show the issue title along with the issue ID number, but I cannot just type in the issue title from the appearing dropdown. I would still need to put the number which is representing that issue before I can add it automatically.
Let me see.
I think, yeah, like you said, it could make sense to just keep it consistent for now, since we don't, well, I guess we kind of allow for it, but it's not super usable, perhaps, at the moment. Go ahead, Donald.
So, is this what you're talking about, Kushal?
Okay. Yeah. So the issue that I am looking at has all the titles beginning with a certain string. So obviously it is not doing a fuzzy search. Yeah.
I wonder if it's just showing, if it's not searching through all issues.
Yep. Let me check if it is doing any network requests, and then maybe you can see. Yeah, it doesn't do network search.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So are we pulling in all are we pulling in a limited amount of issues on that?
So in the linked issues, we are just pulling in the issues for the current project. But when it comes to linked epics, the equation changes because we also have nested groups, and depending on how wide of a scope we want to have here, like from which hierarchical groups do we want allow epics to be linked, our search space would either be broad or narrower. So
Yeah.
that basically elevates the problem a bit in case we do want to go ahead and put in a similar title based search, because right now I can see that in the issue search it is doing a pure local search. It doesn't put in the network request for the title that you're putting in.
Yeah, and I wonder if anyone's actually using title search there, because there's no call out at all within the UI on how to do that. It's kind of a Easter egg. If you already know it's there.
You see it in like the filter bar. People will type in like free text thinking they're typing in a label, and also because you can't do the space and then it tokenizes, so they think they're doing something correctly. So I would assume it's something similar. So is there an action item there, just that we want to start with something fairly consistent, then probably clean up the usability, and then introduce like title searching? Is that what we're thinking?
Yes, I think we can begin with a similar UX, but eventually we can have a single component that can be utilized for both issues and epics because the underlying app is still the same. And we already have a component within GitLab UI that we can use here to have a tokenized search and not have to worry about local search that is happening right now. We can even introduce a network-based search, at least for the epics, because there will have a lot more children groups to worry about.
John, do you want to voice yours, or go ahead?
I'm gonna skip mine and go to Jan's because I think that like they're related anyway. I think we use the auto suggest endpoint for this, right? There are specific endpoints. I think it's auto suggest or autocomplete /issues and /epics. And I think we use that. Does anyone know? In other words, we don't load all issues in the project, but and sort them on the front end, but we use that endpoint because it can receive like 3 characters and then successfully search across more characters.
Yeah, I think we have autocomplete endpoint in internal API, which could be used for this. So from the discussion, it seems that we load all issues in the project, if I understood it correctly, which might be a big problem. And the response could be pretty huge also. I wonder if the same would be used for epics, or if we plan to use auto-completion and return only 10 results or 20. Anyway, this sounds like a problem which we hopefully should fix. Not sure if as part of MVC or...
It seems that we load only title and ID though, but we do load a bunch.
Yeah, what if there is 50,000 of issues?
Yeah, we get all of them basically right now.
Yeah, I just tested it out, and if you try to just put in the hash in any of the issue within GitLab project, we are loading 43,000 plus issues in a single API call, and then doing local search on front end. So,
and it takes 8.5 seconds or something like that for me at least.
Yeah, and we used to do that on through the autocomplete API for filtered search within the issue page, which is within the group issue page. And for GitLab org, that call took forever. Since we switched it to GraphQL, it's not nearly as bad, but I don't think we can get away with loading all of the epics within an epic page.
The view issue list feature flag, is that switched on for all of .com now? Okay, cool. So there was one endpoint that refused to go away, and it was the Epic's controller index action, and we couldn't figure what was still calling that, and we tracked it down to the old filter bar. And we wanted to remove that endpoint entirely because it loads all epics, but we couldn't. So that's interesting. I must go back and check and see if we're getting any traffic to that endpoint now, because we might be able to remove it.
And looking at the payload that we are trying to load, I think then I kind of agree with Alexis here that we should rather have the widget from the get-go, where we just leverage GraphQL and support full title-based search for both issues and epics, and do the pagination as well, because I don't see implementing such an API call for epics where the number of epics that we end up getting in single call is even huge.
Yeah, so for first iteration, because I don't think we'd be able to get it all over to GraphQL in time. But the first iteration should just be no title search, just paste the links or use the epic ID. Is everyone okay with that?
And
Even if it is a little different from the issue link widget, because technically on the issue link widget, you can search by title.
Out of curiosity, what are we using on front-end side in the Epic 3 widget? Because I remember it's possible to add sub-epics too, and there is some auto-completion. So do we use autocomplete endpoint there, or are we loading all epics there too? Or and the following question, can we reuse the same auto-completion in this new upcoming related epics widget? Because it would be the same, right? We want to provide the same list of epics as we provide in the epics tree, right?
Yeah, so in the epics tree, we are using the autocomplete sources REST API instead of GraphQL for autocomplete.
Yeah, and it's quite fast. So wouldn't we just use that as well? Because we use that already in the related issues widget. So can't we use it in the related epics one?
Yeah, and I believe it is doing the exact same thing as we would want it in the linked epics, because on GitLab org project, it is or group, it is basically loading all the 8,000 epics at once.
Yeah, I just ran it there. It took 1,100 milliseconds. Not great, not awful, you know.
Wait, sorry, Kushal, for the epic tree, it is pulling every epic.
Yes. So if you try to add an existing epic as a child epic and you put ampersand symbol, it would basically do the autocomplete sources REST call, and it will pull all the epics from that group as well as child groups, and then show you exact same context menu as you would see in the linked issues.
Cool. Yeah, let's just use that then for the first iteration.
Yeah,
Hey,
backend comes with free.
Oh, go ahead, Kusha. Finish it.
Yeah, so basically we get backend for free in case we want to reuse the exact same endpoint. So.
Yeah, we kind of assumed you were going to use that same endpoint anyway. Like, so that's great. Yeah, it doesn't do subsequent calls, I noticed as well. So as you type, it doesn't trim it down. You literally just load all 8,000 epics, but it happens in a second, so it's not terrible. It's okay. Actually, we could just hash that. So
yeah. Why is it so?
We
is it
cache it because of permission?
Yeah,
reasons,
permissions. Yeah.
Oh, in that search for the epic tree, we're only searching by group, right? Well, oh, sorry, we're only searching through a specific group.
Group hierarchy,
That's why we only
I
have
think.
4,000. Oh, so we are?
I'm not
I
sure.
don't think we're searching through subgroups, because you can select what group, or you have to select what. Actually, maybe you don't, because it's before. Do you know, Kushal?
because you're in a group, right?
Yeah, so at least in the API call that we are making, we are not passing any query params. So we have had these query params like include descendants and include ancestors whenever we want to search through a group. That is not happening in this particular endpoint. And if you try to add an existing epic, it doesn't even ask you to select the group first. It assumes that you're trying to look for an epic which is available for current group that you're in. We are not passing any query param to determine whether we want to include hierarchy or not. Wait. It does include child groups, because I can see that it is trying to bring up epics which are part of GitLab org, as well as GitLab org/charts group. So it is basically pulling in all the child groups, except that the API call itself doesn't have any query param reflecting it.
Yeah, I think the reason is that in Epics Finder on backend side, we default to true for including descendants in the Finder. So yeah, that would match the code.
Cool. I think this is going to work then. Out of the box. My point in the agenda was just about, yeah, I don't think in Alexis' demo, Alexis, you showed that, you know, you would be able to search across multiple groups, like different hierarchies. That's not going to be possible until we solve the problem of that just is so it's not performant at all to search across like every group that you have access to and all the epics in those groups. It's just too slow. So at least for now it won't be, but since you can still add epics from subgroups, you're still going to need that label that shows the group, you know, that little bit of text that says this is from GitLab org/charts or whatever. And also, anyway, the person will be able to just paste in an epic from anywhere they have access to and add that to the as a related epic. So you'll still get that.
And so my point here is, so what did y'all mean by pasting an epic ID? What do you have to type in, like GitLab, you know, .org/, you know, because there's like, for example, epic 2 can live in like 8 groups that you can have access to, right?
So we'll have to see how the tree widget basically behaves currently. Like right now, you can either have a permalink to the epic with the domain, etc., and you just paste that link and it determines which group to look for that particular epic. And in case you do want to search for an epic which belongs to a certain child group, then I'm guessing you'll have to do the title search, which happens locally instead of async. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect a user to provide a group path at least. Either they need to have a link to an epic directly from the address bar, or they just ideally should remember the title of the epic that they are trying to add.
I think that's how it works with issues, right? You can't just paste in the reference of an issue. You can either put in the URL or you can put in the pound sign with the issue number.
Yes, exactly. And on backend side, what is happening when parsing these references is that we parse it exactly as we would do in your markdown if you reference some issue in the issue description, for example. Yeah, so the exactly same happens when we are parsing these references. So you can use ampersand number to reference reference epic in the same group, or you can use the full group path ampersand number to reference cross-group epic references, or even URLs.
Okay, I'll have to play around with the issue links too, just to kind of conceptualize the behavior. But you're saying that like if I'm in group A and I type &2, I'm still going to see like that drop down with the matches to &2 within group A, and then maybe group A/subgroup C or whatever. Okay, I see nodding. Okay, so we'll play around with that. But MVC, just totally the same kind of behavior. They can search by prefixing with that ampersand, sort like quote unquote search. or type the ID. Okay. And then I wonder if we could look into it, but maybe I guess they would need that group selector for MVC as well. Yep. Cool. So my next question, I mean, this is probably a silly question to y'all, but why is the global like advanced search so different than ours? Like, what's the logic there? Because that one seems to be able to search fairly performantly. I'm talking about the one like in the top nav.
I think that's Elasticsearch, right?
Yeah, so it uses a totally different search technology. And the reason that we can't use it for things within plan is because there's a 2-minute delay on indexing. So if like you make a new issue, it doesn't show up there for a while. And then there's some like overarching long-term discussions on how we would eventually be able to use Elasticsearch, because it's definitely the like preferred solution for searching big bodies of text like we do. But so far it's just kind of like totally separate. It's called there's a group called Global Search that works on it, so that's why.
I think we'll always have to support fallback to Postgres for licensing reasons for customers who don't want to use Elasticsearch. But yeah, it's a real shame. A real shame. It would solve so many of our performance issues.
Someday. Cool. I'll just go over my last point really quickly, and then we can move on. So just the last thing around, I mean, there's a lot of things, but we'll just talk about this one. That with like, I don't know exactly what to call these. So if you have an epic that is not confidential, but it's in a group you don't have access to, I'm thinking it would be nice for the user to be able to see that the epic exists, but they don't have access to it. And maybe there'd even be counts on it. Probably not display the group it's in. And again, this is all kind of just like ideation rough, but I'm thinking maybe, and again, I don't know exactly what to title it, like private epic or just like, I don't know, it's not confidential, just like, or epic or whatever, but, and then allow the user to perhaps request access. I know we were thinking about like read-only modes for epics, but I'm thinking it would be interesting to allow the user to at least see that something exists there and perhaps be able to get some kind of view of it. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Or what were you thinking here?
I think it's awesome, but I don't think it's MVC. But like a very early version of this might be just to simply like subtract, since we don't have relative positioning in the MVC anyway, I believe. It wouldn't really matter. We could put all these to the bottom and simply do a count, right? And say like, you know, if there are 10 epics, but you only see 8, we fill in the remaining 2 with just a placeholder that says, you know, private epic. And that way as well, we can avoid any incoming like bug reports which say like, oh, I see a count of 12, but I only see 10 epics. Where's like, what am I missing? You know, but I think it's a cool idea. Yeah.
I don't know why, but in GitLab, we usually, the resources that you don't have access to, we usually 404 on them. I don't know if that was a security related thing that was raised, because even if for instance, a project exists and you want to access it, you'll not get a permission denied, you'll get a 404. And that's the same for issues and for epics, I think. So I don't know, like, obviously this will solve some of the issues that we have with accounts, right? All over the place where you don't have permission, but the thing exists. But I don't know where the discussion started or how this was decided, but we seem to even kind of like decide not to even show the fact that something like that exists to a user that doesn't have permission to see that information. So yeah,
Yes.
it may be a bigger question. I don't know why it was decided this way.
Yeah, so you are right. And I think that one of the major reasons is that then you might use a brute force attack to, for example, guess for some matches of titles or something like that. Yeah? Because if you could distinguish between existence and not access, then you can use a brute force attack.
Yeah, and then you also have access to some, like if you go to a link and it says you don't have access to this, you still have access to some things in the URL. So to like Jan's point, you can use that to brute force information off of it. So for the MVC, what is the plan on epics that the user doesn't have access to? Are we just not showing them within the epic link widget?
The widget. I believe that's the current behavior, correct? Where like when we have counts, we just show that we show it in the counts, but not in the UI, basically.
Yeah,
So
I
they
think
see
so.
like, for example, that there's 8 epics, but if they don't have access to 6 of them, they see 2 epics.
Yes, I think you are right. We ignore permissions for counts for performance reasons. And I think it was agreed some time ago that it's okay to show not matching counts. At least we don't, we ignore permission checks in all counts in left sidebar and on other places. So I would expect this is the same case.
So I think the problem to solve there that's the problem to solve. Like maybe there's something small we can do to improve that. Like John said, even, I don't know, like even just some kind of weird little placeholder that's just like, you don't have access to this item, or like, here's, I don't know, there's an epic here. But then that would be kind of behavior that we have elsewhere that we might have to amend. So it's kind of a global thing. So, because then what would we do in a board, for example? Would we then show like a card like that? So it's something you'd have to think through.
I don't know if this would be possible on backend side, because we cannot just simply prefill missing epics with some placeholders in API response, because we cannot fulfill some valid IDs and references so to other project resources. So this would have to be added on purely on front-end side if you want to add some missing placeholders.
So for MVC, perhaps like we could work on, I think we're looking at this a little bit, just some kind of notification that the counts may be mismatched and why. Can we trigger like that? Like, can that be conditional that if the user doesn't have access to some of the items in the list, they see something, a notification that tells them why? Or do we know that? Would it have to just be ever present? Does that make sense? So like, can we only show that notification if we know the user can't see, like the counts are going to be mismatched? Or do we know that?
Well, I assume that simple check would be that front end may check if the number of retrieved epics it matches the number it requested. So if it requests 100 epics and it gets only 98 epics, then the reason might be that some are missing due to permission check. But this is more complicated, because if there is less than 100 epics, we return less epics anyway, and with key set pagination we don't return total amount of epics. On the other side, you request discount anyway, so yeah, we probably can do this check, I guess. Yeah, it's tricky with pagination, I'm afraid. I'm not sure how it would work offhand. It's something to investigate further. Kushal, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to suggest exact same thing, but then I realized, yes, with pagination in the mix, we'd have to, maybe we can do something on the Rails level before even we do the GraphQL API hit, like maybe backend provides a flag that the counts are ignoring permissions, but there may be some epics that are required to have permission before you can access them. So just a Boolean flag should be sufficient. I mean, we don't need to show how many epics or issues user doesn't have access to. We just need to show a banner that there may be some epics which are not available here because they are requiring some permission. So if we have such a flag provided by backend before the app gets initialized, then we can utilize that instead.
All right, I'll create an issue and kind of tinker on it, and we can work on it there. Any other questions here? And then we can move on to demos. Sorry, took up all this time. Flurry Donald, do you want to take it away?
I think we have nobody left to demo this one, which is a shame. I got to play with it during the week. But there is a demo project where it's enabled on, which I think people can go and check out. I'll find that afterwards and put it in the agenda. I have the next point after this. Let's see if my voice will stick with me for the whole point. But anyway, it's just a quick update on the backend planning spike for epic dependencies, which we were just talking about. We made some key decisions. We're going to use the internal REST API mostly for issue links because it makes it easier for front end and back end. Basically, we can copy more stuff over. It's a known thing. We know how it works. We'll also expose one endpoint via the external REST API. That's for customers to be able to access their epic dependencies through the REST API. We have a stretch goal for that as well to include the rest of the REST API, but it is a stretch goal. We'll be focused on just making sure we get out with the MVC first. We had some naming things, so we've gone with related epic link. Since epic links is already defined, it's defined for epic hierarchy relationships, which is annoying and dissatisfying because issue link means related and blocking issues, so there's just a little cognitive overhead there, but like we can't do anything about it now. Yeah, permissions checking performance should be acceptable, but we'll need to test as we go. And we've decided, well, we didn't decide, we were informed that the tier is ultimate. So yeah, huge thanks to Eugenia. She drove the spike forward. Yeah, and Felipe Cashel, Donald, Gabe, Melissa, and everyone else who participated and kept it unblocked. And yeah, I've linked the MVC epic. It's all nicely laid out in issues, weighted, ready to rock. We've actually already started the database work because it's usually the single blocker to everything. We started that already. It's gone into maintainer review today. That's it. Any questions?
I could demo the roadmap if you want.
Yes, do this.
Okay. Yeah, it looks a little different, but Donald created this. So this is the Donald test. Basically now when you go into roadmap, you'll see the settings button that took some of those items out of the header. You can select a date range. It defaults to this quarter. If you select this year, for example, it's kind of conditional, so you can change the segments, get more the longer the time frame. You can turn off milestones entirely, or this one we're kind of tinkering on still, or you could select just like a certain segment of milestones, like maybe you only want to see project milestones. You can show open, closed, or all epics, like as we have currently. It's just styled in a different way. And then the cool thing is you could either turn progress tracking off, or you can now display it by issue count and quantify that progress tracking in that way. So questions? Fleur did an awesome job on this, by the way.
That looks great.
Cool.
Yeah, that
I'll
looks
post
awesome.
a link to this if anyone wants it.
Out of curiosity, would anyone know if the queries done to the GraphQL API are updated depending on the settings? So for example, if I check that I don't want to see milestones, then front end doesn't request these milestones from the backend? Maybe I can check myself after the call. I was just curious because it's have some feature or settings, so it's awesome.
So I reviewed a couple of these MRs. I think what we are doing here is we are introducing query param for every setting that you touch. So essentially what happens is if you have the URL bookmarked and if you hit that URL, it basically won't request milestones in case the query param is representing that the milestones are not shown. So that way you're basically preventing unnecessary GraphQL calls. But yeah, until we introduce some form of preferences, we already have an issue where we are discussing like how to introduce saved preferences either on the user account level or at least in the browser level, depending on how we want to save it. We'll have a more concrete way of determining which network calls to make and which not to.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, sorry. Was the question, Jan, around everything? Or so for milestones specifically, we're getting all milestones because I don't think filtering is available yet in the GraphQL API, and then we're determining what to show on the front end. But everything else we're filtered on the backend.
No, the question was rather if the query which is done to backend is updated with only necessary attributes depending on settings. Yeah, so if user checks that he doesn't want to see milestones in the roadmap, then we don't request milestones from the backend.
Yeah, no, not yet.
Yeah, it was just a quick thought that it might improve the performance of the query in future. So it might be something to consider. But anyway, it's of some feature.
I think we had a performance issue to split those queries. I think they're combined at the minute, right? Epics and milestones in the roadmap.
Yep. I think that's something we're taking on next in 14.9 is to unbatch those queries.
Cool. Looks like we're out of agenda items unless anyone has any other points on that. Okay, I'm going to stop recording. Now we can go